you can live chat with Easy and Alan at lennymelnickfantasysports.com. Rumour has it, Lenny only swings one way, with Launch Angle. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And welcome to a Fantasy Fan Sportscast. I'm Easy Kill. And across the keyboard from me is my expert, Chris Allen. Chris, how you doing tonight?
Oh, not too bad, Mark. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We're talking fantasy. We're talking sports. We're getting close to the football season starting. I've got a lot going on the next, what do we got? 7 days, 8 days. So, I'm pretty excited about that. Getting ready. How are you? I said I got a couple drafts going on right now that are slow drafts. I got pretty much a draft, I think, every night. I think Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, my main draft, and I think Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. How about you?
I've got six slow draft. No, seven. Yeah, 7 slow drafts going on. I'm a member of Draft Day Consultants. It's an online group run by Denny Carter. We work with clients in order to either draft their teams, whether it be redraft, auction, dynasty, or whatever. But I have 4 clients this season already. I just did my first client draft last night where we were just talking together through Google Hangouts, and I was helping him put together his team. So I had that one last night. I got another one tomorrow, one on Friday, and then I've got a home league on Saturday, along with another client draft, I believe, on Sunday. So I'm just back to back.
Now before we go too far, I'm Easy Kill. You can find me out at the Lenny Melnick fantasysports.com in the chat room. Also, I'm Easy on Twitter. I'm Easy at Fantasy Fan. Chris, you're at 4 for 4. You do some articles. You're at FF Couch Coach. So that's what you're talking about. But when you do these things where you help people out, do you do the whole draft or you do help them after the draft?
A little bit of both. It depends on what they want to pay for. So obviously the cost for having both in draft and then also during the full season, that payment is a little bit larger. It's somewhere in like the couple $100 range. But for just we're just doing the draft, it's like somewhere in the $60-$70 range.
Now, does it is the cost of the league a factor or just how much it is, period?
That's just how much it is, period. So it's the cost of the time for us to sit down and then work with you. So if we're doing like pre-draft consultation and then in-draft consultation, that'd be one thing. And then if it's like season long where we're talking about who we're picking up, who should we pick off the waiver wire, trades, who we're like start sit questions and all of that, then it gets, then we're talking about the next 13, 14 weeks of communicating with the client.
I got you. And is it the client? That's kind of neat. So you help them out through the whole season, and it's a set amount depending on how much work they need even through the season. Once it's a season thing, then whenever they need to help or need manager advice, then that's when you'll jump in. I got you.
Exactly. So yeah, I've been doing those. My own personal like home leagues with friends, family, whatever. And between those and then wrapping up the last of these best ball leagues because they're winding down fairly quickly now. So this fantasy football on my mind 24/7.
Oh, good. All right. That's exciting. Here in a second, like I said, we're out of the chat room. I'm going to type a few things in there. You can see us live on YouTube. Or like I said, come out to the chat room. Get pretty. But tonight I am going to I'm going to be mixing up a drink that I named after someone in the chat room, Cha-Cha. It's called the Tilting Cha-Cha. He was being a little whiny, person in a chat room of a draft. And, when I came up with that, Tilting Cha-Cha, I said, man, that sounds like a good drink. And a name of a drink. So I thought, well, then I need to come up with a recipe to go with that. So,
okay.
So I'll do that here in just a second. If people want to go out there to YouTube, Cha-Cha, if you go to youtube.com, if all one word, just search a fantasy fan. You can do that. I think if you follow me on Twitter, you can find a link there to the YouTube page if you want to visually see me mix this drink, because it's like I'm on Rachel Ray. I have a nice try to stay to the microphone here. Let me bring over my.
So what have you got going on over there?
Right, here's what I got.
Because I got to see this.
Oh, I don't even know if you can see it. I'll see if I can lift it here.
Oh boy, you got a little bit of everything going on over there.
A bar. I got a bar here. Is that
Tabasco sauce I saw?
Okay, yes. All right. This is the Tilting Cha-Cha. The Tilting Cha-Cha is not just some basic ass drink. This is something, if you're going to support the whiny, what's of the world, you got to have a mean drink. If you're going to be a Tilting Cha-Cha, and I said before the show, I said, name one ingredient. You named it right off the bat. This drink has tequila in it. And we will start with that. This starts with a shaker and ice. I got me a shaker. You got a shaker and ice. You let me know when you think this is probably the best drink you've ever had. This drink requires 3 ounces.
3 ounces.
If you're gonna be tilting cha-cha, you gotta have enough tequila to start the tilt. Correct?
I feel like you need more than just 3 ounces, though.
Okay,
but I could be wrong. But I'm listening to you.
3 ounces is 2 shots.
Okay,
that's 2 shots of tequila.
Okay,
technically, All right, so. People, if you can see me on YouTube, I do have it there. I should put up the YouTube chat room. I don't know if you have if you can pull that up or not, Chris. Maybe I can't see it if someone's in the chat room. All right. So we start with 3 ounces of tequila. The next ingredient, if you're gonna be a tilting cha-cha, you have to have hot sauce. I'm sorry.
Have to have
hot sauce. To have hot sauce.
All right.
For a tilting cha-cha.
Okay.
This is 1 teaspoon of Tabasco sauce.
You
got to have that, Chris. You got to have it. If you're going to go on tilt in a fantasy draft room, you got to have.
So how much hot sauce are we adding here?
1 teaspoon.
1 teaspoon. This is this is oddly specific in terms of the amounts here.
I made this up in seconds. Someone said that sounded disgusting, so I decided I had
to. I mean, I've never mixed tequila and hot sauce together, so I would have to agree with that assessment.
Thank you. Wait till you hear the next ingredient.
Okay.
I think if you're going to be a tilting cha-cha, you got to have some cocoa powder. Cocoa powder. This
cocoa powder.
1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. The Spanish like a little chocolate with their hot sauce. That's truly an ingredient. So
are you actually going to taste that?
Oh, yeah. We're going to taste cocoa. We're going to taste some cocoa.
Okay. All right.
Guest Morel says more hot sauce, but trust me, I've never had this before. 1 step at a time.
Okay.
Someone says I'm a little distorted. Hold on, I'll pull me down just a hair. I have a tendency to be a little loud. That's just me, Chris. You've known me a while. Have you ever known me to be a little loud?
A little bit, not a lot.
I adjusted this down a little, guys, in the chat room. Let me know. But I got my cocoa. I got my Tabasco. Now, 3 ounces of freshly squeezed lime juice. Look right here, 3 ounces in my little Rachel Ray cup. That goes in there. 3 ounces of fresh squeezed lime juice.
Okay.
All right. So far we have 3 ounces tequila, a teaspoon of hot sauce, a teaspoon of cocoa powder, 3 ounces of lime juice. Next, the original recipe said simple syrup. I'm not a simple man. I'm going to use
tell them
amber raw 100%. None of this 99% shit. This is 100% blue agave. This shit's going in.
Okay.
And this is a 1 ounce. 1 ounce. You got to have a little sweetness.
A little bit.
There's a little sweetness in cha-cha, so you have to have just a tad of sweetness.
Okay.
All right. So we have tequila, lime juice, cocoa powder, hot sauce, simple syrup, or Guave.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure fantasy people are enjoying the hell out of this.
Oh, sure. I mean,
so far, would you drink this so far?
I would
get better, but
it has to get better at this point. I mean, I will try anything one time. So I'm down for it.
I'm down for it. Okay. I'm so mad my wife took my computer and I can't watch. Okay, sorry about that guy who I played that guy in the first week fantasy in another league. And that guy, we have a bet. I have to name my team something. He has to name his team something. Holy geez, Cha-Cha. That when you're on tilt, you will get that. Cha-Cha just put a nice little picture in the chat room. I appreciate that, Cha-Cha. Okay, shake this up. Shake this up. All right, and let that sit a second because now we have the last ingredient.
Oh, there's some more?
Oh, if you're going to have a Cha-Cha.
What is that?
This drink, we have a Corona because this is a man's drink. A man doesn't drink out of a little tumbler.
Oh, my God.
6 ounces. 6 ounces of Corona in my Hustler cup. Cha-Cha, if you're watching on YouTube, I got my Hustler cup.
And you're going to pour that into?
We are mixing one more little shake because the cocoa powder. And trust me, I have never had this in my life. I've never heard of it. This is my recipe. If you're going to be a whiny little biatch in a chat room, then you might as well have.
We're mixing beer and tequila, huh?
Well,
Lord have mercy.
I told you one time about the Baja Fog, right?
Yes, yeah, you told me about that. I've yet to try that.
Corona and you just fill it out. You just put a shot of tequila in the top.
Yeah, but a shot of tequila. Now you've added 2 into this.
I know. And some hot sauce.
All right.
Oh, Chris, that is looking pretty. That is a color. Oh, that is looking pretty. Chris, this looks weird on the top. I wish I could. I'm sure it does. This has a very unique flavor.
I'm sure it does.
The color here. So then we're going to get into. Again, apologize for everybody who tuned in specifically to hear some fantasy talk, but I'm going to have my first drink ever of the Tilting Cha-Cha. Here we go.
Oh boy.
Chris,
what do we got, Mark?
Oh, there's a little bang on the back of the throat. This is good. This is good. This, Chris, I'm telling you. You know what? The hot sauce isn't there until the end. It does bang the back of your throat. There is.
Yeah, I would expect it.
There's a little cocoa taste to it. You get the lot. I'm in. This is. I hate to give Cha-Cha this much credit. I would come up with such a unique drink.
And name it after him?
And name it after him.
Right.
But, you know, the Tilting Cha-Cha, Cha-Cha hits the back of my throat. And Cha-Cha, I mean, it's just a tad. I am choking on Cha-Cha. I would recommend everybody give that a try. You want the recipe.
We're going to have to figure out this recipe.
That is a recipe. Shoot me a message on Twitter, whatever. Pretty simple. I would recommend this if you're gonna have a draft and you want to have a little unique drink. You have, Chris, me and you have had a few drinks. Talked about a few drinks. This is definitely, you do get a little of the cocoa flavor. I recommend this. Okay. I recommend it.
All right.
Oh, and I got a feeling that after one of these, you're going to be a happy drafter.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, with all the alcohol in there.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for putting up with me. Let me find my paperwork. Chris, I lost my paperwork.
Oh boy.
Let's move on. Where did I put it? There we go. There we go. I have too much cha-cha on the back of my throat.
This is why we can't have nice things.
All right, there you go, cha-cha. That's your drink. It's delicious. Cha-cha, you gotta have one of these there in New York. It's a unique drink. It's not pretty. Now it does look good in that Hustler mug. So, I appreciate it. All right, everybody. Chris, let's move on to a little bit of sports talk. Let's clean up what we talked about last week. And that's the Little League World Series.
Oh, yes.
I did not tune into any of it. Did you watch the big deal on Sunday?
I did not.
All right. Well, the USA, I think it's the USA. They were Hawaiian. Our Hawaiians, I mean, if we're Hawaiians, we're USA, right?
Yes.
Because the other issue I have with this tournament is a little bit fixed in the fact that the U.S. is guaranteed a spot in the finals. All the other countries have to fight for a shot at beating us, which maybe in the old days was a good thing because we were maybe we led in, in baseball and skill and all that. Now it's pretty much a national pastime in a lot of countries. So I was pretty pretty keen on that. But I think now the Americans have won 3 years in a row, if I heard that right. So
that's okay.
We're kind of on a roll right now. So, but I didn't watch it. Just curious if you did. The other big thing happened this week. U.S. Open #1 seed women's tennis player lost in the very first match. First time it's ever happened. Had that on while I was at work, but was paying no attention until the end when they said that she lost. Halep, is that how you pronounce her name? Or
I think so. Yeah. I forget which country she's from, but I think that sounds right.
So that's kind of the two big non-football stories. The next one I kind of wanted to get into that was this week was and how it would affect fantasy, and that's Jerry Jones discussing getting rid of
the preseason games.
The preseason games, adding another regular season game. I know they've talked about this on and off for a few years. What's your opinion on one? Do you think it needs to be fixed? And two, is this an option? Do you think we really need more games?
More preseason games? No, I don't think less preseason games. I think the problem with having less preseason games is that it gives teams less of a chance in order to figure out who they want to keep on the rosters. So since they've moved to this one singular date where they cut down the roster down to the final 53-man roster, I would say from a coach's perspective, even though most of them I don't think a lot of coaches and front offices actually operate all that well, but at least from a logistical standpoint, I think they need all the time they can get in order to figure out who they want to keep on the roster. So I think those preseason games from that aspect are necessary. I don't want to extend the regular season because players already deal with enough injuries and enough problems, the health-related problems, just the gruel of going through the 16-game season. If they're ever going to even talk about or discuss adding more regular season games, they need to add in a second bye week then at that point, because the players need more time or like more rest in between some of these games as it is. And if they're talking about we're going to London already. They've got however many games there per year. Started doing the games in Mexico.
I think they went up to 4 last year.
Yeah, four games over in London. And then now they're going to Mexico.
Yep.
So, with all this additional travel, if they're not staying within the continental United States, and you want to tack on an extra regular season game, we need to also discuss more time for them to recoup, because that's just a lot. It really is.
Right. I'm a fan of why not add a second bye week for the teams?
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with making the season longer, especially as a fantasy person. Because you'd still have games for another week. You just would have, more teams on bye different weeks and things like that. You try to work it out to where, every team gets a two buys and, at a minimum, a few weeks in between. I know Jerry Jones was even talking about having no game at all, meaning there would be totally no playoffs, no nothing. There'd be a weekend off in there so that all the playoff teams would have an opportunity, to get healthy. I know that was one of the things he was talking also, that, if they change the playoff format, they wouldn't change playoff format. They would just, like I said, make it to where all the teams would get 1 week off to get healthy. And obviously the teams that have the bye would get 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How football is, and Jerry's a businessman. If they could figure out a way to make football 12 months a year,
he'd do it. I mean, more time for them to sell stuff, more time for them to keep butts and seats in the stadiums that cost however long to operate. Right. So I understand it from his perspective, but from my perspective, and then what I would also assume from the players' perspective, is that I'm sure as much as they want to keep playing the game and continue to get paid, I mean, you do have to take into account your long-term health and things of that nature. So I would definitely advocate for that second bye week, or I mean, like Jerry mentioned, I mean, if he's fine with adding in that extra time, like let's say between the regular season and the start of the playoffs, everybody gets like 2 weeks off before the playoffs start.
Do you think doing the 2 weeks off and adding an extra game they could handle that, or is it just too many games for a professional athlete to play?
I think it's just, I mean, already 16 games. I think they're already at their max to begin with.
Right. I agree with that myself. Yes. So, I just thought it was, I think Jerry's idea is to, I think they've realized this year for sure the preseason is really, my problem with it is a waste a little bit, but mainly it's just a waste for season ticket holders because they force them to pay full price.
That's true.
To me, the easy fix is don't change anything except your pricing structure of your tickets. Because I'm guessing, and I've heard, I'm a fan. That's what this is all about. So I'm just giving you what I've heard. And I have heard that, even though the preseason game doesn't look that important to us and some of these main players don't play, what we miss is those 2 or 3 days those two teams are together doing very intensive workouts. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people say, even though we don't see the top players playing, when they're doing these practices, they are, they are involved. Now because they can control, they can control who's getting hit or not getting hit. So, I'm a fan of, they need to just change the pricing structure, keep the 4 weeks if that does help, because same thing. Some of these younger rookies need those 4 games to maybe make a team, so
those 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, the undrafted free agents, all those guys that they just came off the street, they need all the time, they need all the reps that they can get. Right. And how often do you think they'll actually get a chance to work with the first team offense if they only have 2 weeks to do it?
Right.
I mean, that's when, if you do that, then draft capital now becomes everything. If you have a first or second round, if you were a first or second round draft pick, then you have to be the person that's getting all the first team reps because the team sunk all that money into you. So, the team
had a cha-cha. A cha-cha just bit me in the back of the throat again.
Cha-cha came right back up your throat, huh?
Man. Yeah. That ½ ounce of hot sauce, I should have bought the cheap stuff that wasn't as hot.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Adjust that recipe a little bit.
So it just bit me in the back. But I'm drinking it. I think it actually is, it's just unique. So
next time we get together, bring the stuff and
you'll get it at Whirl. Yeah. I think I need to work on the cocoa powder dissolving better. So I probably should. Maybe I should just put that in the tequila and shake it a lot more, let it sit, and really dissolve. But hey, it was good. So one last thing on that though. As a fantasy player, though, I like the idea of extending the season a little bit. It goes quick. Anyone, you guys in the chat room, I don't know, agree with me. Our topic tonight, when we get to it, is, how much hate there is this time of year. We're the closest to playing the game we love. But at the same time, right now, everyone's pissed off about stuff. Everybody wants it to go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's get the draft picks over. Let's get this. Let's don't wait. Your team sucks. My team sucks. We all think our teams suck. So we'll get that in a little bit. But that being said, if they could extend this another week or two so that we're playing, instead of 13, 14, 15 weeks, that we could play, a couple more. As a fantasy player, I like that idea.
Yeah, I do too. It's just, again, understanding what the bad part could be, though, that depending on those extra matchups and all that, and how the fantasy playoffs might shift because of those extra games.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
you might want this. You might want the season.
My argument is like that. Those are the kind of things, though. That's part of learning the game when it changes. When real football changes, fantasy changes, and you have to adapt. So
absolutely, yeah. And then, but then on the flip side, that player that got injured in week 5 or 6, they now have an extra week to come back and then be on your team. So say like Jordan Reed, everybody's drafting Jordan Reed in like the 8th, 9th, 10th round. He comes out in the first 4 weeks. He comes out and then he performs well. Then he gets injured in week 4. Well, typically, if it was a normal regular fantasy season, most folks just drop him and say, "Well, I'm not going to have him back in time." That extra couple of weeks, he might be somebody you can pick up in the playoffs.
Right. Now, and Cha in the chat room is saying baseball season's too long, and I'd agree for fantasy. It is a tad long, and football, and he's saying football's too short. I think I'm going to change my home league baseball to where the Super Bowl, where the World Series starts a whole month early. I do like the idea that you play baseball all the way up so that you're ending right when football takes off. So, that I think would be nice. I mean, because this is a time of year in baseball where they're bringing up all the younger players and the rosters are expanding. It changes the game. I know Lenny's talked about that a little bit. Anyway, so why not just end a month early? Again, I know the baseball only guys won't like that, and the roto guys don't like that because they want the stats for the whole season. But I mean, again, you can adapt. If you're in a baseball only league with a bunch of baseball guys, do what keep going. But if you're in a league with a bunch of fantasy players like I am that do all 3 seasons, why not cut a little bit short? And then move on with the football season. So.
Absolutely. But also another thing we could take into account as just football fans, not even fantasy football fans, but if let's say the Super Bowl now gets pushed back a couple of weeks or even significantly longer, so now the Super Bowl gets played towards the end of February, early March, depending on extra bye weeks and then the increased time before the playoffs start, that might give you some better weather conditions. So now more stadiums can now be included in the selection process for the NFL figuring out where they want to play the Super Bowl at. Right. So like when they played at when was it in New York outside in February, who would want to play there?
Well, actually, the year they did it, I think they had a pretty decent weather.
That one actually, it was cold. Yeah. It was cold as all get out.
But they didn't have snow or anything like that.
So it worked out. But I mean, in any case, in some other cases, if it had been snowing or whatever, everyone would have complained about the weather and all those other things. So there are pros and cons for doing it that way.
Right. I agree. All right. Let's get to the news and notes from around the league. I'll let you start. I got a few things, mainly the contract stuff. We'll talk about that here in a second. Any major injuries from last week?
Surprisingly enough, there haven't been any major injuries. The one big one was the Marquise Lee knee injury, which finally the doctor came out and said that multiple ligament tears. He's done for the season, so now that gives way to Keelan Cole, Dede Westbrook, Dante Moncrief now become the wide receiver trio in Jacksonville. Now, those are the big ones. I mean, surprisingly enough, it's been kind of quiet on the injury front.
Actually, for the whole preseason, this is one of those seasons where if you'd actually drafted 3 weeks ago or something, most everybody would be fine.
Yeah, minus Darius Geis, but other than that, I mean, sounds okay. I mean, everybody's looks like George Kittle. He came back to practice today.
We had the shoulder injury. We did have. I didn't even put that. We had multiples come back. I think McKinnon, I think, is back.
It sounded like he was making some progress back. It sounded like Marlon Mack. He was making. I don't think he was back to practice, but he's making strides, so he should be back. I don't know if he's going to be
back with New England.
So Michelle is back. The only other one that I did hear about, Hayden Hurst, tight end from Baltimore, stress fracture in his foot, so he had to undergo surgery. He's out 2 to 4 weeks. Doug Baldwin, he had a presser.
Let's stop at that one, because to me that's an offense in fantasy that I'm excited a little bit more about Baltimore than other people. If their defense struggles, Flacco can throw the ball. People don't think that Flacco can throw it far.
Yeah.
You know, so I do think their defense has kept them, I think, in check offensively. If their defense has some issues, you know, and they got a kind of light schedule, if I recall, to start, you know, it is one of those things, like I said, where the defensive injury could affect fantasy offensively.
Right, exactly. And I think for Baltimore, their defense, they have a fairly solid, their front seven is solid, linebacking core is solid. It's just their corners and safety play has been pretty much their downfall. So it's the rush, like anybody that the running backs against them, they typically struggle. But then the wide receivers, they do fairly well. But yeah, I'm wholeheartedly with you because I'm high on Michael Crabtree, Alex Collins, even like Buck Allen, John Brown, anybody that's attached to the Baltimore offense, I'm fairly high on. And I've been grabbing Joe Flacco fairly late if I ever get a chance to, if I ever do draft like 3 quarterbacks in like a 2 quarterback super flex league, something of that nature. But yeah, I think the Baltimore offense is one of those sneaky good offenses for 2018.
Right. The other news that happened that I had a question on for fantasy, and that was the Raiders trading a wide receiver to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think it affects the Pittsburgh Steelers much based on what they got. My concern is, how does it affect Jordy Nelson, but mainly Martavis Bryant? He's going so low in drafts. Do they know something we don't know? And maybe they know he's not going to get suspended, so we should be drafting him higher than we are?
I don't think he was ever going to get suspended in the first place. I think that was it.
Okay,
was
you don't think, but most fantasy people have that in their head that he wasn't going to play maybe 3 or 4 weeks this year.
But that all came from a beat reporter. That never came from the league. It never came from the coaching staff. I mean, it came from a reporter that had some connections within the team. So the source had credibility, but talking with the coaching staff, talking with the front office for the Raiders, talking with the league, nobody knew or nobody had any inclination to say that, yeah, this is what's happening, or nobody dropped the, well, you'll have to wait and see. There was no other smoke. That was it.
Right.
So, I mean, other than Martavis Bryant not really performing well in practice, which some of the beat reporters that have been there in camp and during the preseason have noted, other than that, Martavis Bryant, he's been there, been working with the first team offense, at times actually working with the second and third team offense.
But in 10 and 12 team home leagues, I've seen where he's not even being drafted.
Oh yeah, everybody's avoiding him.
I mean,
and I think he's a great value at that point.
Right. I mean, and I was one of those that had a, question mark on him on my cheat sheet, but that was my point. Is this trade one of those where we don't listen to what teams say, but pay attention to what they do? And to me, this is one of those. They traded somebody that a lot of people thought was an okay wide receiver, that if Bryant was suspended, this guy would have filled in. So obviously they get rid of him. That tells me Bryant's going to be available.
Yes, I do think that Bryant's going to be available, or at least the team knows that there's really nothing to this suspension rumors that have been lingering for, gosh, it's been almost like 6 weeks now or something like that when we first heard about these suspension rumors. But I don't think there's anything to it. And then, yeah, with Ryan Switzer, who was the wide receiver that got traded, he was drafted by the Cowboys 2 seasons ago, and then now he went from Oakland now over to Pittsburgh. That definitely opens up the spot because Switzer's size and also his position, he was a Cole Beasley clone, like the same size, same stature, like fairly similar in that regard in terms of also where he played, typically out of the slot. So now moving him out from Oakland to Pittsburgh, that gives Jordy Nelson free reign to, I would assume he's not going to be taken off the field unless he needs to come out for a breather or something of that nature. So Jordy Nelson should be the primary slot receiver there in Oakland now.
Okay, but Cha-Cha in the chat room does want to know, in his auction draft, Bryant is still available, and they're down to dollar picks. I mean,
throw a dollar out there for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in that same draft. I blew all my money, so I don't have $1. I blew my money. See, why Cha-Cha was bitching and moaning at everybody being too slow, I bid on all my players.
You were just sitting there throwing your money. You were making it rain in there, weren't you?
Right. Easy was dropping the bills.
You were making it rain.
I was throwing down the vengeance. I was having a good time.
You were making it rain, man.
I have different auctions are different, I guess is what I want to say.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to prepare different, but then to me, they're even more unique as in they never go the way you plan. I mean,
yes.
Where other drafts sometimes you go, man, that worked out just the way I was hoping.
Right.
Auctions never do that. So including my own thoughts, and they already made fun of me. I have 3 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league.
Oh boy.
And
that's not good.
No, because I got the guy I wanted very early. I got Rivers for $3. What a deal.
That's a good deal.
That was a deal. The problem was
how much you spent for the other 2?
Okay. The other combined almost $20.
Okay. Well, out of a $100 budget?
200.
200. Okay.
But the problem was in other auctions and other things, Tom Brady's been going for 15 and more.
Okay.
So when I saw him at 12 and this is a slow auction, so we had time on the players up for bid for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And there was only an hour or 2 left. And I'm like, Tom Brady's still at 12. That's ridiculous.
Price enforcing.
I only started to bid to get the bid up and going again.
Price enforcing. I like it.
So I went another $1. The other guy who was already there, he bid another $1. And I thought, wow, he's definitely going to go, in my head, I thought he's definitely going to go 15.
One more $1.
And if he's going to go 15, he'd probably go 16. So I hit the 15 button.
And then you got stuck with him.
And then I got stuck with Brady. The problem with that is we bid on, and this isn't one of those where one player at a time is for auction. There's like 20 players on the board at the same time.
Right.
At this very same time this is happening, Mahomes is going pretty cheap in my book.
Okay.
Same thing. He's been going for $5-6, and all that. Already got Rivers for $3, so I figured same thing. So I decided I'm going to bid this up too. So I'm bidding Brady and him up at the same time, and I got stuck with both of them.
Well, at least you didn't completely use up all of your budget.
No, I didn't. I have a fairly decent team, I think. Unfortunately, and this is one of those, and I did exactly what I planned. I've done the stars and scrubs. where you have 2 guys for $80, so $160 you blow on 2 guys, and the rest you buy on $2 and $3 and $4 players.
Right.
This time I kind of stayed. I do have a couple low, $3 and $4 players, but I pretty much stayed in that hole. I have a team full of 4th, maybe a 3rd round player here and there, but mainly 3, 4, and 5 round players. So, Cha-Cha says he's booing up my team. In that league, I think I played Cha-Cha the first week. So he's going to be wanting to drink one of these drinks during that week when I'm kicking his, So Cha-Cha is still stuck. I'm done because I filled my roster quickly. I took, like I said, a lot of medium range players. So I had fun. And that's where we'll get in our topic here in a minute. Because again, there was a lot of head boiling in that chat room during that draft. So any other news or notes other than just the 2 big things contract wise that happened? I'm not sure how it affects fantasy. That's Odell Beckham for $65 million, and Aaron Rodgers. I think they just finalized it tonight. I didn't get a final number, but I think he's now the highest paid.
Yeah, 134 million, if I'm not mistaken, for his extension.
Yeah, I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think everyone knew he was going to be, I figured at minimum he's going to get $1 more than Stafford, who was the highest paid up to that second, I think. So I don't think that affects fantasy much, other than maybe if you have a keeper or a dynasty league and you have Beckham. I mean, obviously it sounds like he's obviously committed to where he's at. You don't have to worry about that.
And then the same thing for the Packers wide receivers, minus Randall Cobb, who does carry a fairly hefty price tag. I think his contract value for 2019 is somewhere in the $11 to $12 million range, so it's entirely possible he gets cut next year. But anybody else that's still on the team, Devontae Adams, Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones, some of those guys, I mean, their long-term dynasty future is fairly well set. So with the extension, and then of course the Teddy Bridgewater trade that happened earlier today.
Yeah. Who? What was traded? Bridgewater traded.
Yeah, he is now a Saint.
I guess how that affects fantasy is the Jets starting quarterback is probably then going to be Sam
Mr. Darnold.
Darnold. So,
Yep.
And he has been throwing the ball a lot. So
he is set to be the youngest quarterback to ever start an NFL game. I think he'll be like 21 years and like 3 days or something like that. But I think he'll break the record for the youngest to ever start an NFL game.
Right. So that's pretty. I mean, I'm excited about value. And to me, back to like Baltimore, the Jets, I think, have some value people out there. So, and back to having a set quarterback that's young and willing to throw the ball around, I think all their wide receivers to me bump up a little bit. I don't think you're moving them far. So, I know that was a pretty big deal. Now, I'm kind of a little disappointed because I was really hoping to see Bridgewater actually start for the Jets. I thought he was going to be a starter there. And maybe as a streamer might have had some value the first couple of weeks as a runner and a thrower maybe.
I think so, but I guess when it comes to the value that the Saints gave up, because the Saints gave up a third-round pick in return for Bridgewater. So I'd be hard-pressed as a team to pass up that sort of draft equity for a player that you're not really sure what his path is going to be unless Darnold got hurt. So let's assume that they were going to go into the regular season with Darnold being the starter. Well, if, say, Darnold got hurt or wasn't performing well, what are they going to do? Stick in Bridgewater, who's just coming off of the knee injury and didn't even have a start in 2018. They would most likely put in McCown. So if they didn't have a set path for Bridgewater to be the starter, why continue? And they're being offered a third-round pick. It just made sense for them to make that move. And so now Bridgewater moves into that heir apparent status behind Drew Brees. So I think it's kind of a win-win for both clubs in my book, because I think Teddy Bridgewater is given the chance to fully recoup, get back to the NFL game speed, work behind one of the best, a future Hall of Famer in Drew Brees. And then if Brees, because his contract is over at the end of this season, if I'm not mistaken, he becomes a free agent in 2019. If
Right.
Drew Brees decides to hang him up, Teddy Bridgewater is now throwing passes to Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. That sounds, for me, from a dynasty perspective, that sounds great. And even from a team perspective, I think Teddy Bridgewater still has the chops to at least keep most of their value afloat. I don't know if I'm still going to be drafting Michael Thomas in the first and second round with Bridgewater as the signal caller, but they still have the skill in order to keep them maybe a third, fourth rounder somewhere in there.
You know who their backup was before today?
Taysom Hill, if I'm not mistaken.
That's why you're the expert. You know that. I had no clue.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's the news and notes. Let's get into our quick fantasy do's and don'ts for this week. It's just a little segment where we give you one do and one don't for this time, that you want to consider for this week of your fantasy season. Chris, are you prepared with a do and a don't?
Yeah, I'm prepared. Let's do this.
You are prepared.
Yes, sir.
I'll let you go first. Are you going to go a do or a don't?
I'm going to go with the do. The one thing, so we were talking about, I'm going to continue with this theme because I brought up the same thing last week before these. What's the term that you give for, Mark? You got to give everybody your patented term for, they're not preseason games. What are they?
They are pre-draft games.
There
baby.
we go. Yes.
Hashtag
pre-draft games.
That makes them watchable.
Exactly. But now, since we're getting into the third and fourth week of pre-draft season, now we need to start paying attention. Who's sitting? Who's playing with the first team? Who's out with the first series, the first and second series? Who's still playing in the third and fourth quarter? All of that stuff now becomes a little bit more important than when in the first and second preseason games. Sure, the starters were out for a series or two, but now in these final dress rehearsal games where coaches are now having to make the final decisions on who's going to get cut, because final cuts are due, I believe, next Tuesday. Now we have to really pay attention to who's getting the ball, who's making drops, who's making big plays, who's screwing up and having the same mistakes we might have seen in the first and second preseason or pre-draft games. So now they become a little bit more important in terms of understanding or analyzing what's going on in those games. So now that we can translate that into who we want to draft on our teams for this year.
All right. That's a good one. That's a good one. My do is this is a big draft week, and I think a lot of new fantasy people don't know, and I think there's some I don't even know. Maybe I'm in fantasy. It does seem, in my opinion, you either have people who just know how to play, then you have people like us that play. You know, there's really not a middle ground. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's the fantasy. I play fantasy. Then there's the I play fantasy.
Right.
But for that group, a lot of them don't know. Right now, this time of year, a lot of your online drafts, an hour before your draft is when your position gets picked or set for your draft. So my do for you people is good English. For and now I'm laughing at myself not speaking properly. But right now, when your draft is at 6:00 Saturday night, go to ESPN at 5:00. Log in an hour early. Find out when your draft pick is. Where are you picking? And then spend that hour mocking or studying. That is added information you hadn't had until that time. Take advantage of that. Find out if your website has a time period where that draft order will be set. Log in, get it, and then spend that hour looking at what kind of picks and plan your draft a little farther ahead than you could have up to that time. So use that extra 1 hour of time and information that no one else in your league had up to that point, and that'll give you a little more advantage. If a couple of you are doing it in a 12-man league, the two of you will have an advantage over the 8 people or 9 people who just log in and start drafting at 6:00.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with that, because drafting, just doing mocks, sure, they might give you a sense of the value position of some of the players, but drafting from your exact position, that will let you know who to expect once your turn comes around and help you plan out what your draft strategy is going to be and how your team might look. If you want to start off, if you're drafting from the 6th spot, are you going to wind up with a wide receiver or running back? If you're drafting from the 1st spot, that might change, because you might start off with an elite running back from the 1st spot. So all that stuff changes. So definitely do that. I agree.
And I'm just saying, those are why you tune into this fantasy. There is no other podcast have I heard this week give that tip.
Yes.
Those people will tell you who to draft, in the 3rd round, the 9th position, but no one says log in an hour early and get your spot. Plan ahead. Use that hour. Use that information. That's why you tune in here, Cha-Cha.
That's why we're here. Absolutely.
So go ahead now. Let's do our don'ts. Our don'ts for this week.
Right. So you were just talking about drafting or doing mock drafts prior to your draft, but my don't now has to do with once you're in your draft. So we've done, pre-draft season, mock season, and all that is over, and now we're getting into the actual draft, but we've been going through and doing all these mock drafts. So mock drafts give you an expectation, but your draft is going to be completely different. You don't know how folks are going to be once they actually get behind the computer and that clock's ticking down. So you might see picks come early, picks come later. So that whole mantra of letting the draft fall to you or figuring out or like looking for value, all that stuff becomes very important. I kid you not, Mark. When I was drafting for,
don't kid me, Chris.
I'm not kidding you. When I was drafting for my client yesterday, we were in the 12th spot. The guy in the 6th spot. This is a 12-team standard league. Start one quarterback. His first 4 picks. Again, I kid you not. Out of the 6th hole was Alvin Kamara, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and then Sony Michel. Those were his first 4 picks. How do you mock that? How would you? How you could? You can't. Exactly. So being able to adjust your game to these wild picks that start coming, because a lot of folks, they were seeing quarterbacks like falling off the board. Like, oh well, he's already taken 2 quarterbacks, so I have to take a quarterback. Yeah. It's like no. Don't give in to the positional runs, because now look at all this value that's left on the table. We were able to get Golden Tate at the end of the 5th round, Mark. That doesn't make any sense.
People out there, and especially at Luddy Melnick, fantasysports.com, me and Chris have a lot in common. And one of them is poker. Easy comes from the poker online boom. Some people will ask my name, Easy Kill, goes back a little farther than that, but I was an easy kill in every poker room out there. Played a ton of poker. I played, and I'm not afraid to say I made money playing online poker. I became a pretty good poker player. I paid good money to back in the day. Now it's a little easier. Back in the day, I paid good money for hand simulators and stuff like that. I played millions of hands of poker, and still you get at a table and go, I've never seen this in my life. Right. And it's the same in fantasy. I have mock draft more today than most average people have ever mocked. I mean, I bet I did 30 of them today. I love my job where I have a few minutes where I can, do it on my cell phone. And in the morning, when I wake up in the morning a half hour early, I'll do 4 or 5 in the morning. I've done 5 or 6 or 10 tonight. In between on my cell phone, it's just quick and easy. I just do it's a mock draft, takes 5 minutes just to see what options and what things can happen. If you have a second or, and you have a minute, do some mocks, but that's never going to happen. You're never going to get, I don't care how good the mock draft software is. You're never going to get a mock draft to give you exactly what may happen in a home league.
Exactly. Yep. Without question.
So, all right. My don't, and I cheated. I had 2, but they're pretty similar. One starts with what started this all off this morning and, or started at the beginning of the show where I mixed up this delicious
cha-cha. The Tilton cha-cha.
Cha-cha. Which leads me to my first don't. Don't be the guy bitching about how long the draft is taking. That's usually a loser.
Yes.
I'm just saying. I don't care if it's a live draft, online or whatever. Back to the poker thing. You know what? I bite my tongue more in poker than I ever did anywhere else. You know what? People play bad. Who cares? I would always say nice things to people, never bad. I would hate when somebody would mock or destroy a bad player. The guy'd get up and leave. That's money that you just made me lose because that player left the table. And It's the same in fantasy. Don't talk bad. Don't talk whatever. And if I know I have you on tilt in a chat room or in a draft room, live or otherwise, I've been there. If people are bitching about how long it's taken, I will hold my card, or before I put my sticker on the board, I'll wait my whole 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes in our home draft. I will hold that. If I have a shot at getting someone on tilt who gets pissed off because people are taking too long, so when he gets up there, he takes a kicker in the 6th round, that's my advantage. So if someone wants to be in a chat room or be in the draft room, bitching and moaning, you know what? We already discussed earlier today. The sport isn't long enough anyway. This game that we enjoy playing, it's a short season. So let the draft last a little bit. Who cares? People complain all year, I can't wait to football, can't wait to football. Then they get in a draft room and go, why is this taking so long? You know what? Don't even, you know what? It doesn't matter. There's a timer. There's a clock. Let the guy use it. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know what? Don't be that guy. Gotcha.
I'm with you.
My number 2, only because there's a lot of drafts this week, and this one also does with thing and something to do with tonight. And it does sound odd because again, I bring this from the poker world. Don't drink and draft. You can enjoy yourself, have a good time, but drunk drafters are very rarely winning players. So you know what? When you're at your home leagues where you're drafting in person, and I do that in some local home poker games. You know what? I always have a beer in my hand, but I'm not drinking them much, if you understand what I'm saying. I mean, there are ways to do it so that you look like you're having a good time and that you look like you're, a part of the group and having fun. But if you take this game, seriously and you want to make, good decisions, you have to be one of, clear mind and clear body. So that's my other thing right now is, you know what? Don't drink and draft. Don't draft drunk. Have a good time. This Sunday's a big deal for us. We have a big, cookout, a big meal, and the 12 of us get together. It's fun. So, Andrea says, I love getting buzzed before the draft. Hey, you know what? If it helps you get through it, buzz might be better than drunk. I'm not sure.
I would agree with
if
that.
you're more mellow, right? I think if you're more mellow, as long as you're not in a league that drug tests, I guess you should be all right. So, Andrew, you have a good time as long as there's no drug testing.
I haven't been in a league like that where they drug test you before.
I would not recommend too many tilting cha-chas to get there.
Yeah, that wouldn't be my first
there
choice.
You go. All right. Okay. That's our do's and don'ts for this week of fantasy sports. And Chris, again, we're real good at getting a lot of we just talk too much.
It happens.
People at Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports that are just kind of finding us and finding me. I like to have a good time. I'm a talker. Anybody that knows me knows that I have the ability to carry on a conversation by myself. Yeah, for a long time. I have that ability. And unfortunately, don't act that way there, Chris Allen, who can also give a 10-minute answer that should just been yes or no. Right. So, together, killing it. I'm sorry, Andrea or Lenny, if they ever ask us to do a half-hour show, it won't happen.
That'll be tough.
Struggle. Yeah, we couldn't do it. An hour. That's why we had to be on at night where it's kind of an open format. I know they're getting ready to set up a schedule over there where we all are supposed to, like a radio, and that's fine. I'm excited about that. But
sure.
Leave me open-ended.
Yeah,
leave
please,
easy. Yes,
please.
Leave easy open-ended.
Give us some leeway.
Yes, we like to have good. And it's a podcast. You know what? We're going to get there. I think. Well, actually, Andrea's helping us where we maybe get on Apple podcasts and iTunes and that kind of stuff. You know what? People hit pause, come back later and listen to the other half hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we have a good time. All right, let's get that'll bring us to our kind of topic of the day, which I've just noticed a lot here the last few days, listening to all the live fantasy stuff, the podcast, being involved in. I'm a quick question. Do you know how many, not counting your best ball, because I know that's separate, I mean real season-long drafts, how many have you done already?
Would that also include just redraft, not dynasty?
Just redraft type things,
4 or 5. I don't have too many.
And I think that's where I'm at. I'm at 4 or 5 already, and I've got a few to go. I think I'm probably going to peak in the 10 area. I think I added myself to another auction draft this week, which I thought we were doing tonight. That's next Wednesday. Next Wednesday will be there's an auction draft with the chat room people. With Lou Landers. We will be doing that next Wednesday. It starts at 9. We'll be going on the air a little after 9. So I might even put us online right when the draft starts, and then you can pop in when you get there.
Okay.
So we'll be doing an auction draft, and that's on ESPN. So that's going to be a little different than the one I'm in now, which is slow. That's going to be one where it's just one player, and we're bidding. So that'll be fun. We'll kind of do that live next Wednesday because, the Thursday we have a game. So that'll be pretty neat. So same way. But what I found is this is a pretty, intense time for real fantasy players. Everyone's a little excited. But what I noticed today and our main topic tonight, I had just realized this week, everything's hate right now. Haters. Everything I hear, back to, people hate that it's taking too long. People hate that there's preseason games. People hate their own teams. People hate the other people's teams. People hate the teams that are online and posted. They're right now, the word hate. Cha-Cha's hated me all day today. It's just, there's been all kinds of hate out there. That guy, 219, who I'm going to just, kick his butt next week. It's just, right now everyone hates everything, even though this is, we're Christmas Eve, man. We're Christmas is coming. You know what? And it's kind of the same way at Christmas time where you're so upset, you're like, it's 5 days for Christmas. I should be happy and excited, but no, right. I hate going to the mall. I hate the parking. I hate writing the checks. I hate my credit card bill. I hate wrapping paper. I hate the shitty tape that I bought at the dollar store. You just get to where you hate everything, even though Christmas is around the corner. You know what? The time where you should be having the most fun, enjoying everything the most, we're haters. And right now in fantasy, I'm just curious. And the reason I brought this up tonight as a topic is it just me? am I such a sweet guy that I think haters are haters? Or do you see this too? On Twitter, everyone's like, hate this, or, I just drafted my team. I hate it. What do you see right now with the Christmas is coming? We're a few days away. What's your opinion on all this hate going on right now?
I think everybody's just now getting impatient. And while they might hate their teams or whatever, and actually getting into that, like hate, I think is something of it's this pejorative that we use. I think it's been overplayed, because if we don't like something, everyone just assumes that we hate it. And while I think the word is now it's almost lost all meaning, but yeah, it's something that I think has gotten out of control. The hate has gotten out of control because we're just waiting for the season to start. That's what we're waiting, because at this point, we don't know if the decisions that we've made in order to draft our teams, whether it be whatever decision that we've made, getting Mike Evans in the early second versus getting him in the late second, early third, or whatever decisions that we made to construct our teams, or the story that I just told you about the guy that was taking Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers in the second and third round. I might look at it, and people hearing me recount that story would be like, "Oh, well, he's hating on that dude's team." That guy's team might just absolutely dominate in the first couple of weeks and then flounder.
Right?
We just don't know. And I think that's where the hate, I guess, comes from, is that we don't know. We're ready for football to start. So without knowing, that's where all the impatience, we've been waiting since February, like all these things.
Right. But it's still, this is the week we should be the most excited, having the most fun. But
we're just too impatient as people. We're just too impatient.
Right. And and you said you've had 4 or 5 real drafts, and so have I. And I look at my team, and I mean, and I know, as you're the expert, I'm the fan, but I've done this enough that I always look at my team and go, man, what was I thinking? Look at that hole there. Look at that. I mean, what we hate today, 2 weeks into the season, we're going, we'll be going, damn, that's awesome. So, but I have looked at all my teams and go, man, I've done enough drafts. How'd I let that happen? Yep. I hated that pick, or I hated that value, but it's,
critical eye is, I mean, that's exactly what you need in order to become a better fantasy player, because there's no way that on August 29th, we know that every single pick that we've made is going to either meet or exceed value. We don't know that. We can be happy with some of the picks, but you have to have just some sort of, not necessarily doubt, but just be skeptical of and be mindful of the situations that some of these players are in. We don't know. I mean, we might want Joe Mixon in the second, third round.
Now, are
they're going to go?
Chris, I mean, like I said, you do this a lot more. You are, I find this, I struggle with this a lot. I won the draft. I've never got paid 1 cent as soon as the draft ended.
I don't believe in that. I mean, for me, I think that's just, that term is just it's so subjective. Right. That
people come out of the draft like, oh, I won the draft, I'm excited. This is
yeah.
Again, most people don't. Most people come out and go, man, I'm telling you.
Oh, they go to those draft grades. Like if you go to Yahoo or whatever site or whatever, and after you draft your team, they go and post up on Twitter. Yeah. They're like, oh, look, the site said I got an A.
Right.
I was the only one that got
that
an A.
That should have been one of our don'ts for the week. Yeah. Don't get an A. That if you're getting an A right now on the draft report, that means all you did was pick the best player available based on their stats. And you're probably shit out of luck later in the season.
Which doesn't take positional value or the number of players that you have at that position into account. None of that.
Right.
So, like any team that I've ever drafted, I either wind up with like a C. There's about a C. That's what I get.
But my argument be, if you look at your team after a draft and you just love every spot and you don't see a weakness, then you are probably in a league that you shouldn't be in, or you're in a league that's got way too many players. because that's the fun part. Back to the poker thing, the fun thing about poker is that there's 52 cards, that we're not just playing the 2 that they deal us, we're playing all 7. And that's the same in fantasy. You have to, if you don't have holes, that's the way the game is kind of set up, that, with 12 or 14 teams, you cannot have, a strength everywhere. And I use the word luck, unless you get a little lucky and you grab that, the guy that you thought was a weakness ends up tearing it up, the late round guys, a Martavis Bryant, that Cha-Cha's bidding $1 on right now. If he goes off and ends up being a top 3 quality player, then, that was good. But when you first look back at your thing and you're going, man, my team looks a little weak. I got Martavis Bryant as my 5th wide receiver, and right now that looks bad. But by week 4, you're going, that was the best thing I did. Right. You're hating now. Yeah. You've been loving it later. That's
because we just don't know. We do not know how the season is going to unfold. I mean, I can't think of a year where at the beginning of the season, everybody's like, "Oh, I just won my draft. I've got the best team." But every year at the end of the season, we'll all look back and say, "I can't believe that happened." Like, we always look back on every season. We're like, "How did this happen? How did this person wind up doing so well? Or how did this team wind up going so well?" You mean to tell me that last year everybody knew that the Rams were going to be the best, like one of the best, most potent offenses in the league? Everybody saw that coming. Everybody saw New Orleans and the running backs completely usurping all of Drew Brees' passing stats and completely suppressing all of his, like, you saw that coming? I mean, everybody saw Alvin Kamara coming.
It's even worse than that. They didn't see him coming last year. They're letting him come all over themselves this year.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's he's going, 1.06?
I don't get it. I'm not in on Kamara at all, because
not at that price.
He cannot do any better. He can, I mean, he maybe equals what he did last year. That's the best he's going to do, in my opinion. So, yeah, my son came home from one of his other drafts. Little easy, we'll say, and I said, "Well, how'd your draft go?" Pretty good. I mean, he was excited. And unfortunately, I was a hater, because he ended up with Kamara, Thomas, and then picked Brees in the 6th.
Well, you might as well at that point. I mean, if you're going to go,
I don't know. I'm still thinking, if I'm going to go the other 2, I'm not sure I'm going to bite on all 3. But that's what I told him. That's what you've committed to.
You committed to the full team.
Right. You're either going to dominate, or you're going to be at the end of your standings, because if the team falls apart, all 3 of those cogs are going to go down. I mean, and the problem with that is, that's what I told him. The problem with that, and he's still learning, he's only, mid-20s, and he's not even he got me into this, and he now thinks I'm crazy compared to him. But, I told him, the problem is, though, they don't even have trade value. If they struggle, that's the problem. You end up with 3 guys that you can't even get rid of, so if the ship hits an iceberg, you might as well get to the very top and start singing songs, because you are going down, baby. You are not going to sail any further if they hit an iceberg. And that's the problem when you bank on, 3 players from one team like that. Now, the same thing though, if they hit all season, you can't be beat. I mean, that's the other issue, obviously. So
true. Because I've seen, what was it,
Denver did it. Indianapolis did it.
New England, when they had their perfect season.
But Manning did it both times. Manning did it. If you had Manning and 2 or 3 other Colts on your team, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe it's even longer than that you couldn't be beat. And if you had a handful of Denver Broncos and he was there, you couldn't be beat, because you were starting the game with 60 points already in your, stocking. Made it a little hard. So, all right. Well, that's the thing. My point about being a hater right now is, don't be, enjoy this part, if anything, be like me. I've enjoyed watching the little bitches in the chat room. I've enjoyed, I enjoy pulling the strings. If you know me, I'm a string puller. If I can get a little under somebody's skin, I mean, anybody who knows me knows I'm an aggravator. And my point is, why open your eyes in the morning if the goal isn't to aggravate someone that day? So, somewhere today, I hope to aggravate somebody and, get under their skin a little bit. So, stop being a hater. Christmas is coming, boys. The gifts are under the tree. You know what? Don't worry about the other stuff. Take it all in. Enjoy this time of the fantasy season. We look forward to it. It goes by quickly. Even this part, in a few days, we're going to go, man, the draft season went so fast, enjoy it. Have fun. If you got 4 hours on the clock, Cha, take the 4 hours.
Yes.
You know what? Enjoy those 4 hours. Little Kuma Sutra. I can't even say it necessarily. You know what? Just
I don't remember how to say it.
Sit back, cross your legs,
The woosah.
Right. Be one with yourself. I got like 8 other notes here, but we are way past our time. I've had a good time tonight. I have enjoyed, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe I've had too much of my. I think I just need to figure out how to get the cocoa to be a little more dissolved, and I think I'm going to have to work on how to make this look less like the bottom of a mud puddle. But it's a unique flavor. The lime, the Corona, the little cha-cha hitting the back of my throat. Because it does it. You don't taste it at all, and it all goes down, and all of a sudden you go, ooh, man, little cha-cha on the back. Use a blender, Cha-Cha's telling me.
There you go.
Cha-Cha. I guess I could have I have a nice Vitamix. I could have brought the Vitamix out here and whipped the shit out of it. But again, I had fun. It was something we wasted a lot of time at the beginning making that drink, but I had a couple people tell me that's disgusting what you put, because I put that in the chat room when we're doing it. I just said, the tilting cha-cha sounds like a drink. And then I went, well, if I was going to make a drink that kind of resembled a tilting cha-cha, what would it be? Boom. I put it together. Had a good time. So, well, Chris, let everybody, did you just have another fantasy football weather report come out?
Not yet. I'm working on it right now, processing data, writing, and whatnot. But there was a best ball, let's say like draft strategies, things like that nature, where I interviewed some folks from the Best Ball Command Center, both Mike Beers and Dan Williams. They sat down and we hashed out some of the do's and don'ts, I guess, for best ball. Right. Even though it's like super late into the season and some of them are winding up, just some basic strategies to take home, and we'll pick it up after the Super Bowl next year.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX, and then all of my writing is either at 444.com and also fantrax.com.
All right. And I'm Easy Kill at A Fantasy Fan. We're websites, afantasyfan.com. I got Andre out there helping me. You can find us. You can find me every morning at 9 a.m. If you're a baseball guy. And I'll be honest, I tell them I'm not even a baseball guy. I'm a fantasy guy, and I still enjoy the chat room out there at Lenny Melnick, fantasysports.com. Go out there, join the chat room, pop in, talk to people. There's people out there to help you. People that'll give you, advice on a lot of things, but definitely baseball. So, go out there. So you can find us all there. We'll be back next Wednesday about the same time, around 9:30ish. Like I said, maybe a little early because next week we're going to be in a live auction draft. So, come out, join us all those ways. Me and Chris appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with this for this hour plus and my drink. Anybody wants that recipe? Shoot me a tweet. I'll give it to you. It was actually a very good drink. I'd recommend it. So for all of you, thanks for coming out. Thanks for coming out in the chat room. Had a good time. We'll see you next Wednesday night. Thanks for coming out.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.